It was a quiet Thursday afternoon in Austin, Texas. The kind of day where the sun shines just a little too brightly and the air is thick with the heat of early summer. My phone buzzed on the kitchen counter, but I barely noticed it. I had just returned from a long day at work, and all I wanted was to pour a glass of wine and relax in front of the TV. Life was good, or so I thought. I had only lived in this neighborhood for a few months, but already I had become that go-to neighbor. The one people trust. The one who's always ready to lend a hand. I guess it's because I've always been that person. Raised by my mom to never turn my back on someone in need, I'd learned that helping others brings a certain satisfaction. It's my thing, my purpose. But that day, it would change everything. I was just about to take that first sip of my wine when the knock came. 3 sharp raps at the door. I wasn't expecting anyone, so I hesitated for a moment, wondering who could be standing outside. But when I opened the door, there she was, Linda Harper, my new neighbor. She had moved in a few weeks ago and always seemed so. Perfect. Her house was pristine, her lawn manicured, and her smile always bright and friendly. But she was standing there now, her smile a little more strained, her eyes slightly red as if she'd been crying. "Hey, Megan," she said, her voice wavering just a little. I hope I'm not disturbing you." "Not at all," I replied, trying to be as warm as possible, though I noticed how she seemed to be on the verge of tears. "Is everything okay?" She nodded, but I could tell she was forcing it. "It's just, I've hit a bit of a rough patch. I know this might be a lot to ask, but I need some help. I'm behind on rent this month, and I don't know who else to turn to." Her voice cracked as she spoke the words, and my heart ached. I had no idea what she was going through, but I could see the desperation in her eyes. Her tone wasn't dramatic, just quietly pleading. I didn't hesitate. "Of course, Linda, I'll help you out. How much do you need?" She sighed with relief. "Thank you, Megan. You don't know how much this means to me." I immediately walked inside to grab my purse, knowing I could cover the amount she needed. It wasn't a huge sum, just a few $100s, but it was enough to ease her burden. She had recently mentioned she was between jobs, so this seemed like the least I could do. But as I handed her the cash, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. Something in the way she'd asked, the way her words seemed to hang in the air longer than usual. I shrugged it off. Maybe I was just overthinking things. After all, it wasn't the first time I'd helped a neighbor, and it certainly wouldn't be the last. Linda left with a grateful hug, promising she'd pay me back as soon as she could. I closed the door behind her and went back to my wine, trying to enjoy the evening. But the nagging feeling wouldn't go away. Something felt wrong. The next day, I saw Linda again while I was getting my mail. She was standing on her porch, her face hidden behind a pair of oversized sunglasses. She waved as I walked up the driveway. "Hey, Megan," she called out. "I wanted to thank you again for helping me out yesterday." "No problem at all," I replied, trying to keep the conversation light. But I couldn't help noticing that her smile didn't reach her eyes. We chatted for a few more minutes before I excused myself and went inside. I figured she was just overwhelmed. But as I sat at my kitchen table, I started to replay everything in my head. I hadn't asked many questions. I hadn't pried into the details of her situation. Maybe I should have. That evening, something strange happened. I was scrolling through my phone when a notification popped up. A news article about a woman who had been arrested for scamming people out of money. As I skimmed through the article, my stomach dropped. Linda Harper's face was right there, staring back at me. My mind raced. There had to be some mistake. This couldn't be the same person. Linda was just a neighbor, someone who seemed nice and put together, not a scam artist. But the more I read, the more my heart sank. The woman in the article had a long history of fraudulent activity. She was known for pretending to be in financial distress, convincing people to give her money, only for her to disappear once she had what she needed. Was it possible that Linda was using the same tactics on me? I couldn't believe it. I had trusted her. But what if everything she said was a lie? What if she had only seen me as another target? I had to know for sure. Over the next few days, I started paying closer attention to Linda's actions. I kept an eye on her house, watching for any signs that confirmed my suspicions. And then, I noticed something strange. She was moving money around. I watched from my living room window as Linda pulled out a stack of cash from an envelope. She stuffed it into a purse and left the house in a hurry. I couldn't see where she went, but I had a sinking feeling in my gut. It wasn't just that I was curious. It was that my instincts told me something was off. I had to know more, but how far was I willing to go? The next morning, I couldn't hold back any longer. I decided to confront her. I knocked on her door, and she answered immediately, as though she'd been waiting for me. "Hey, Linda," I began, trying to sound casual but noticing how tense my voice was. "Can we talk?" Her eyes widened slightly, but she stepped aside to let me in. We sat down in her living room, and I could feel the heaviness in the air. "I found something," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "I saw an article about a woman with the same name and, well, I did a little digging. I need to know the truth, Linda. Are you who you say you are?" For a moment, Linda didn't speak. She just stared at me, her expression unreadable. Then, with a sigh, she leaned back in her chair. "I knew you'd find out eventually," she said softly. "You're not the first person I've fooled, Megan." My heart raced, and the room felt like it was closing in on me. Linda was no longer the warm, kind neighbor I had trusted. She was a scammer, a liar. I could feel my hands shake as I struggled to process her words. "Why, Linda? Why would you do this?" She looked at me, her eyes cold. "Because people like you are easy to manipulate. You want to help. You want to believe the best in people. And I know how to take advantage of that. I always do." My blood ran cold. The woman I had helped, the one I had trusted, was nothing more than a con artist. But what happened next? Was this the end of my story with Linda Harper, or just the beginning? I wasn't going to let her walk away without consequences. I needed to make her pay for what she had done. What do you think? Would you have trusted Linda in my shoes? Let me know in the comments. And if you're feeling as betrayed as I did, don't forget to subscribe to follow my story, because this is just the beginning of something much bigger. She had me fooled. I thought I was helping someone in need, but I was just another pawn in her game. It's funny how trust can be so easily shattered, isn't it? One moment, you believe you're doing the right thing, helping someone, being a good neighbor, and the next moment, you're staring into the face of betrayal. I wish I could say I saw the warning signs earlier, but sometimes the truth only becomes clear after the damage is done. After the conversation with Linda, I thought I was done. I thought I had caught her in the act, that I would never see her again, that she would slink off into the shadows, taking her lies with her. But I couldn't shake the feeling that something was still off. Something inside me, maybe the same part of me that trusted her in the first place, was telling me that I hadn't gotten to the bottom of things. I kept thinking about that look in her eyes when she admitted the truth, how she seemed so calm, as if she'd already planned for me to discover her lies. But why? Why go through all that trouble to deceive someone like me, someone she barely even knew? I decided to take a few days to think. I didn't want to make a rash decision. After all, I had given Linda money, trusted her. I had wanted to believe the best in her. But the truth was that I couldn't ignore what I had uncovered. And it kept eating at me, gnawing at me every day. The following Wednesday, I ran into Linda again. I was at the local grocery store, trying to gather some quick supplies for dinner when I turned the corner and saw her in the aisle, browsing the fruit section as if nothing had happened. She looked like her usual self, her hair perfectly styled, her smile as bright as ever. But there was something in her eyes. She was pretending to be the same Linda I'd first met, but I knew better now. I knew there was something behind that smile. A dangerous lie, lurking under the surface. She waved at me when she saw me. "Hey, Megan," she called, her voice light, almost too cheerful. "I was hopping to run into you today." I forced a smile, trying to act casual. "Hey, Linda, how's everything going?" "Oh, just the usual," she said, tossing a few apples into her cart. "Things have been a little tough lately, but I'm hanging in there." It was as if she hadn't just confessed to scamming me a few days ago. It was like she had completely forgotten, or worse, she thought I had forgotten. She wasn't just pretending to be normal, though. She was acting as if nothing had changed between us, and it made me sick. I stood there for a moment, trying to compose myself. Linda, about what happened the other day. I've been thinking, and I don't know if we can just leave it at that. There's more to your story, isn't there? Her face went blank for a second, like a switch had been flipped. Then she recovered, smiling a little too quickly. What do you mean? She asked, tilting her head, the picture of innocence. I didn't buy it. My gut told me everything I needed to know. She was lying again. But I wasn't going to let her manipulate me this time. I know what you're doing, Linda, I said, my voice more forceful than I expected. I know what you've done to other people. I'm not going to let you get away with it. Her smile faltered, just for a second, but it was enough to confirm my suspicions. She knew she was caught. But instead of breaking down, begging for forgiveness like I thought she might, she just stared at me, her expression unreadable. Look, Megan, she said slowly, lowering her voice. I don't want any trouble. I've been through a lot. Maybe I made some mistakes, but it's not what you think. I wasn't sure what she was trying to do, appeal to my sense of pity, make me feel guilty for even questioning her. I wasn't sure, but I wasn't buying it anymore. I'm not going to play your game, Linda, I said, my words sharp. I'm done. I turned to walk away, my heart pounding in my chest. But as I reached the end of the aisle, I heard her call out to me. Megan, wait. I froze for a moment, debating whether I should just keep walking, ignore her completely. But my curiosity got the better of me. I turned back to face her. Listen, Linda said in a low voice, her eyes scanning the aisle nervously. You don't know everything. If you really want to know the truth, we need to talk. But not here, not now. I didn't trust her. I didn't know if I ever would again. But something about the way she said those words, something in her tone, made me pause. What's going on, Linda? I asked, unable to stop myself. What truth? I can't say here, she whispered, glancing around. Meet me at my house tonight. I'll tell you everything. But you have to promise not to tell anyone. I wanted to refuse. I wanted to walk away and never look back. But the part of me that was still clinging to the idea of justice, of knowing the full truth, couldn't resist. I nodded slowly. Okay, tonight then. That night I drove over to Linda's house. The driveway was quiet, just the soft hum of crickets in the air. I parked my car and sat there for a moment, feeling the weight of the decision. Was I making a mistake? What was Linda planning to tell me? Could I trust her now? I knocked on the door, and after a few moments, Linda opened it. Her face was pale, and her smile was forced, as if she were trying to convince herself that everything was going to be okay. Come in, she said softly, stepping aside to let me in. The house felt cold, almost empty. It was impeccably clean, like it always was, but there was a heaviness in the air. I followed her to the living room and sat down on the couch, waiting for her to speak. I've been lying to you, Megan, Linda began, her voice barely above a whisper. But not just about money. There's a lot more to it than that. I leaned forward, my curiosity getting the best of me. Then tell me, Linda, tell me what's really going on. Her hands trembled as she clasped them together, taking a deep breath before speaking again. I'm not who I said I am, she admitted, her voice breaking slightly. I'm part of a bigger scheme, one that's been going on for years. I've been taking money from people just like you. I've made a career out of it, and I don't know how to stop. The truth hit me like a slap in the face. Everything she had said, every excuse, every sob story, was all a lie. But what shocked me even more was the look on her face. She wasn't just admitting to a mistake. She was confessing to something far darker, something that went beyond just financial struggles. I stared at her, unable to say a word. My mind was racing. What was she trying to pull now? Was this another manipulation, or was she finally telling the truth? What do you want from me, Linda? I asked, my voice low, the suspicion creeping back in. I want to end it, she said, looking me dead in the eyes. But I need your help. If you go to the authorities, they'll come after me, and I can't let that happen. I sat back, my heart racing. What was she asking me to do? Help her get away with it? I can't help you, I said, shaking my head. You've already crossed the line. Her expression faltered, but she quickly recovered, a sly smile creeping onto her lips. "You'll change your mind," she whispered, almost to herself. "You'll see." I thought I knew Linda. I thought I understood her, but what I uncovered, it shattered everything I believed. I don't know what's worse. The moment you realize you've been deceived, or the moment you understand that the person deceiving you is much more dangerous than you ever imagined. After that night at Linda's house, I thought I had heard it all. She admitted to the scams, but I still couldn't wrap my head around it. She seemed so calm, so collected, like none of it mattered to her. I thought maybe, just maybe, she was looking for redemption. But something kept gnawing at me. I couldn't shake the feeling that there was more she wasn't telling me. The next few days were a blur. My mind kept racing back to Linda's words. "You'll change your mind. You'll see." It was haunting, almost like a threat veiled in a promise. I didn't know if I was just being paranoid, but everything about Linda's confession felt like part of a bigger game, a game I hadn't fully understood yet. That morning, as I sat in my car outside my office, I couldn't take it anymore. I had to know everything. I couldn't let Linda just walk away with my trust and my money. I had to uncover every single lie she had told me. I wasn't just going to let her ruin my life without consequences. I decided to visit her again. This time, I was going in armed with questions. I needed answers. If Linda thought I was just going to sit back and let her manipulate me, she was wrong. When I pulled up to Linda's house, the first thing I noticed was the tension in the air. It was early afternoon, and everything looked deceptively normal. The same neat lawn, the same carefully chosen decor. Linda's house was pristine, just like her persona, an image she'd spent years perfecting. But under that shiny surface was something darker, something I needed to uncover. I knocked on her door, and when she answered, her smile didn't quite reach her eyes. "Megan," she said, her voice too smooth. "Back so soon." "I need to know everything, Linda," I said, cutting to the chase. "All of it. Who are you really? What are you hiding?" Her expression flickered for a brief second, but she quickly masked it with that perfect, practiced smile. "I already told you everything, Megan. What more do you want from me?" I could see it now. I wasn't dealing with someone just trying to get by. I was dealing with a master manipulator, a woman who could twist the truth into whatever shape suited her needs. And I had fallen for it, hook, line, and sinker. "I'm not leaving until I get the truth, Linda," I said firmly, stepping inside before she could close the door. "Everything you've told me, how much of it is real?" She hesitated, her eyes flickering. For a moment, I thought I saw something like fear behind them. Then, with a sigh, she stepped aside, letting me in. "Sit down, Megan. I'll tell you everything," she said, her voice almost soothing now, as if she were trying to calm me. I wasn't fooled, but I sat down on the couch, my heart pounding, waiting for her to speak. I knew she was about to spill more of her lies, but I wasn't going to let her control the narrative this time. "I was raised in a rough neighborhood," she began, her voice soft but steady. "My parents weren't around much, and I had to fend for myself. I learned quickly that people are predictable. They want to help. They want to feel good about themselves. And She paused for a moment, as if gathering her thoughts. "I just figured out how to give them what they wanted." I narrowed my eyes. This wasn't the story I was expecting. She was trying to paint herself as a victim, as someone who was just trying to survive. But there was more to it, I could feel it. This wasn't just about surviving, it was about control. "I used to be just like you," she continued. "I thought I could get by with kindness, but kindness doesn't pay the bills. It doesn't put food on the table. And that's when I realized something. If you can make people feel sorry for you, if you can make them think you need help, they'll give you whatever you want." The words hit me like a punch to the gut. It was a sickeningly brilliant strategy, one I could never have imagined in my worst nightmares. Linda wasn't just using people. She was preying on their compassion, manipulating their desire to help. And I had fallen right into her trap. I looked at her, my heart racing. "You've done this to other people, haven't you?" She didn't flinch. "Of course. I've had to move a lot, different cities, different states. It's easier when you're always the new person. You can create a fresh story every time. The story changes, but the game is always the same." I couldn't breathe. She wasn't just a small-time con artist. She was a professional. A predator who had spent years perfecting her lies, targeting people like me who were just trying to be kind, trying to help. My thoughts were spinning, and my emotions were all over the place. Anger, disbelief, betrayal. How could I have been so naive? But then something strange happened. As I sat there, listening to Linda's cold, calculated words, I felt a flicker of something else, a new kind of clarity. I wasn't going to let this slide. Not this time. I had to make her pay for what she'd done. I stood up, cutting her off mid-sentence. "I don't care about your sob story, Linda," I said, my voice steady but filled with rage. "I'm not going to let you walk away from this. You've scammed too many people, and I'm going to make sure everyone knows exactly who you are." For a moment, Linda didn't speak. She just stared at me, her face unreadable. Then, finally, she broke the silence. "You don't understand, Megan," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "This isn't just about money, it's about power, and you've just made yourself a target." My blood ran cold. Her words were not just a threat, they were a warning. And for the first time, I realized the gravity of what I was dealing with. Linda wasn't just a con artist. She was dangerous, but that didn't scare me. If anything, it made me even more determined to take her down. "I'm not afraid of you," I said, standing tall. "You've crossed the line, and I'm going to make sure you pay for it." I turned and walked toward the door, but as I reached the handle, I felt Linda's gaze on me. "You can't stop this, Megan," she said, her voice thick with malice. "I always win." I slammed the door behind me, my hands shaking with adrenaline. I had to act quickly. I couldn't let her get away with this, not after everything she had done. I knew what I had to do. I wasn't just going to expose Linda. I was going to destroy her. So, what do you think? Was I wrong for taking things this far? I never imagined I'd find myself here, staring down the woman who had stolen my trust, my money, and my peace of mind. But now, I'm ready for payback, and this time she's not going to win. If there's one thing I learned over the past few days, it's that Linda was more than just a scam artist. She wasn't someone who made one mistake or lost control. No, she was a master of manipulation. And the more I uncovered, the more I realized just how far her lies had stretched. It wasn't just about money. It wasn't even about the betrayal. It was about power. Linda knew how to twist the truth to fit her needs, how to get inside people's heads and make them feel sorry for her, only to turn around and use that sympathy against them. She had done it to me, and I had let her, but not anymore. This time, I was going to be the one in control. I had already made up my mind. I wasn't going to just expose Linda. That would be too easy. No, I was going to make sure she paid for everything she had done, for all the lives she had ruined, including mine. But where to start? That's where Jake Miller came in. He was the private investigator I had hired, someone who knew the ins and outs of Linda's past better than anyone. Jake was no amateur. He'd worked on cases like this before, tracking down fraudsters and exposing their webs of lies. But Linda was different. She was smart, slippery, and always one step ahead, and that made her dangerous. I hadn't told Jake everything, hadn't told him about the emotional toll Linda had taken on me, the way I had trusted her. But as I sat across from him in his dimly lit office, watching him scribble notes in his notebook, I realized I didn't need to explain. Jake knew exactly what kind of person Linda was. He had seen it before. "I've been looking into Linda's background," Jake said, his voice gravelly as he leaned forward. "And I think I've found something big." My heart skipped a beat. I had been waiting for this moment, the moment when I'd finally have the ammunition to take Linda down. "What did you find?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. Jake pushed a folder across the table, and as I opened it, my stomach twisted into knots. Inside were documents, records, bank statements, and photos of Linda with other victims. Each page confirmed what I had feared. Linda wasn't just scamming me. She was part of a much larger operation, a network of fraudsters who had been operating for years. She had fooled people all over the country, and now she was looking for her next victim. And that victim, unfortunately, was me. But this wasn't the worst part. No, the worst part was the realization that Linda's web of lies had stretched far beyond just money. She was connected to people, dangerous people, who wouldn't hesitate to take drastic measures to protect their interests. Jake's eyes met mine, and for the first time I saw a flicker of uncertainty in them. "This isn't just about money, Megan," he said slowly. "It's bigger than that. Linda's playing a game and she's pulling the strings from behind the scenes. But if you're serious about bringing her down, you need to be careful. She's not going to go down without a fight." My mind raced as I processed his words. Of course, I knew it wouldn't be easy, but I was past the point of turning back. Linda had taken so much from me, and I wasn't going to let her walk away untouched. "I'm ready," I said, my voice firm. "Let's do this." I spent the next few days in a blur of planning. Jake helped me gather all the evidence we could, carefully tracing Linda's steps, collecting any information that could connect her to the fraud network she was running. We had to be careful. Linda was smart, and if she caught wind of what we were doing, she would cover her tracks before we could make a move. But the more we uncovered, the more I realized just how deep Linda's deception ran. It wasn't just about stealing money from good people. No, Linda was a puppeteer, pulling the strings of a much larger operation, and I was just a pawn in her twisted game. I kept thinking about the things she had said to me that night in her living room, how she'd tried to manipulate me, how she'd convinced me to trust her. She knew how to push all the right buttons. She had studied me, figured out my weaknesses, and she used that to her advantage. But now I had something she didn't, knowledge, and knowledge, as they say, is power. I called a meeting with Jake to discuss our next steps. It was time to go on the offensive. "We need to expose Linda, and we need to do it in a way that she can't recover from," I said, packing the floor of Jake's office. "I've got a few ideas, but I need your help to make it stick." Jake looked up from his papers, his face serious. "I'm in, but we need to be smart about this. If we move too quickly, we risk tipping her off. We need to make sure we've got all our ducks in a row." I nodded, my heart pounding in my chest. I could feel the adrenaline building inside me. This was it, the moment I had been waiting for. We spent the next few hours strategizing, going over every detail. Our plan was simple: expose Linda for the fraud she was, and make sure she couldn't run or hide. We had the evidence to back it up, and now it was time to make her pay. But even as I prepared for the confrontation, something gnawed at the back of my mind. What if this was a mistake? What if Linda had a backup plan, something we hadn't accounted for? I couldn't afford to hesitate now. I had come this far. And if there was one thing I knew for sure, it was this: I wasn't going to let her win. That night, as I sat in my car outside Linda's house, I felt a rush of emotions: fear, excitement, anticipation. I had no idea how things were going to play out, but I knew one thing for sure: Linda wasn't going to see this coming. I had one shot, and this time I wasn't going to let her slip through my fingers. As I walked up to her door, my heart beat faster with every step. I knocked, knowing that whatever happened next, I was ready. Linda opened the door, and as soon as she saw me, her face twisted into a mask of fake surprise. "Megan, what a surprise," she said, her voice dripping with sweetness. "What's going on?" I didn't waste time with pleasantries. "I know everything, Linda," I said, my voice cold. "I know what you've been doing, and it's over." Her smile faltered for just a second, but she quickly recovered. "Megan, you don't know what you're talking about. You have no idea." "I know enough," I interrupted. "And now I'm going to make sure everyone else does too." The moment I realized Linda had set me up wasn't a quiet realization. It hit me like a freight train, a cold, hard slap in the face. She knew exactly what I was about to do, and she was ready for it. I thought I had control. I thought I was the one pulling the strings. But the moment I walked into Linda's house that night, I knew deep down that I had been walking straight into her trap. Linda wasn't just a scam artist. She was a manipulator, a chess player, always 3 steps ahead, and I had underestimated her. I didn't know how she had figured it out, but somehow, Linda knew that I had been investigating her. I didn't think she'd catch on so quickly, but as I stood in her living room, looking into her calm, composed face, the reality hit me hard. She had anticipated every move I was about to make. I had walked into her den. I should have turned around, left, and walked away. I should have run, but I didn't. My anger, my need for justice, was clouding my better judgment. I wanted to expose her, destroy her, and in doing so, I had fallen right into the trap she had carefully set. "Come in, Megan," Linda said sweetly, her voice so calm it made me want to scream. "I was wondering when you'd come by. I figured we needed to have a little talk." I stood frozen in the doorway for a second, the cold air outside biting at my skin. Her words hung in the air, almost too calm, too calculated. The last time we'd spoken, she had tried to manipulate me with her lies, but this time something was different. Something about the way she said it made me uneasy. I stepped inside, feeling the weight of the moment pressing down on me. Linda closed the door behind me, the sound echoing in the empty space, and then she turned to face me, her smile as fake as ever. "I know what you've been doing, Megan," she said, her eyes gleaming. "You've been poking around, trying to dig up dirt on me, haven't you?" My stomach dropped, and for a moment I thought I might faint. She knew. She had known all along. "You've been playing me this whole time, haven't you?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper. Linda's smile widened. "Oh, Megan, don't be dramatic. I didn't want it to come to this, but I had to be sure you were really serious. It's not easy, convincing someone like you that I'm just a regular person with regular problems. But you're too smart for your own good, aren't you? You've been asking the wrong questions." The words hit me like a punch in the gut. I had been played, but worse than that. Linda had been using me, playing me like a game, and I hadn't even realized it until it was too late. "I trusted you," I whispered, my voice cracking. "I believed you." Linda's expression softened, but it was all for show. I could see the glee in her eyes, the satisfaction of having me right where she wanted me. "And that's your mistake, Megan," she said, stepping closer to me. "You believed in me. That was your downfall. You should have known better than to trust someone like me. But now I'm afraid there's no turning back." The air between us felt thick, like the calm before a storm. I was trembling, not with fear, but with fury. My mind raced. How could I have been so stupid? How had I let her manipulate me for this long? But now I couldn't go back. I couldn't let her win. "I'm not going to let you get away with this," I said, my voice steadier than I felt. "You've hurt people, Linda. You've taken everything from them, everything from me, and I'm not going to let you keep doing this. I'm going to make sure everyone knows exactly who you are." Linda laughed, a soft, mocking laugh that made my blood run cold. "You really think you can stop me? Do you really think you can take me down, Megan? Do you know who I'm working with? Who I'm connected to? You're in over your head." Her words sent a chill through me, but I refused to show fear. I couldn't back down now. "I've got enough on you to take you down," I shot back, trying to keep my voice calm. "I've got evidence, Linda. I know everything. And if you don't stop, I'll make sure everyone knows the truth." For a split second, her expression faltered. It was the tiniest shift, but I saw it. She was worried. For a moment, Linda wasn't the powerful, untouchable figure she always pretended to be. She was human. She was vulnerable. But that moment didn't last long. Her face hardened and her eyes narrowed. "You don't get it, do you? You think you have power over me. You think you can bring me down, but you're wrong." She stepped back, moving toward a small table in the corner of the room. My heart raced. Something wasn't right. Why was she acting so calm now? Was she toying with me? Linda picked up a small envelope from the table and slowly turned back to face me. "I didn't want to do this, Megan, but you forced my hand." Before I could react, she opened the envelope and slid a stack of photographs across the table toward me. I froze. The photos were of me. Private photos, pictures taken from my personal life, from places I had been, from times I thought no one was watching. The images were clear, hauntingly so. I felt my throat tighten, and for a moment I couldn't speak. "You think you can expose me," Linda said coldly. "I've been watching you too. I know everything about you, Megan, every move you've made, every mistake you've ever made. And if you dare try to go public with your little investigation, I will make sure these photos get into the wrong hands. You'll lose everything. Your job, your reputation, your life as you know it." The weight of her words hit me like a ton of bricks. My hands trembled as I reached for the photographs, my mind racing to process what she was saying. Linda wasn't just threatening me, she was blackmailing me. "Do you really want to ruin your life over this, Megan?" she asked, her voice silky smooth. "You've already gone too far. You can't win this fight. Not against me, not against them." I looked at the photos, my heart pounding in my chest. I didn't know what to do. I couldn't back down now, but what could I possibly do to stop her? "Now," Linda said, walking slowly toward me, "I want you to think long and hard about what comes next. You're in this deep and there's no turning back. If you want to survive this, you'll need to make a choice. You'll need to decide whether you want to be with me or against me." Her words hung in the air, suffocating me. What choice did I have? It felt like there was no way out. But then something inside me snapped. I wasn't going to let her control me, not anymore. With a deep breath, I stood up, looking Linda dead in the eyes. "I'm not afraid of you, Linda. You can't scare me anymore." She smirked, clearly unbothered. "We'll see about that." As I walked toward the door, I knew this was far from over. Linda might have played her cards well, but I wasn't backing down. Not now, not ever. The moment I stepped into Linda's world, I knew there would be no turning back. But what happened next? I wasn't just going to expose her. I was going to make sure she never, ever did this to anyone again. I couldn't breathe. It felt like the walls were closing in on me as Linda's words echoed in my ears. Her blackmail, those pictures, were a threat, and they hit harder than anything I had expected. The woman I thought I could trust, the neighbor I had been so kind to, was playing a dangerous game of manipulation, and she wasn't afraid to go to extremes to keep her lies intact. But in that moment, something inside me clicked. I wasn't going to let her win. She had pushed me to the edge, but she had made one fatal mistake. She underestimated me. Linda had thought she could control me, that I would be too afraid to expose her, too afraid to lose everything. But she didn't know the most important thing about me. I wasn't like the others she had scammed. I was determined, and I would stop at nothing to make sure she faced the consequences of her actions. I stood there, looking at the photos scattered across her table. My heart raced, but my mind was clear. I had to act fast. I couldn't let Linda win, not after everything she had done. I took a deep breath, holding my head high, determined to hold on to the power I had left. "You've underestimated me, Linda," I said, my voice unwavering. "You think these photos scare me? They don't. I'm not backing down. I'm going to expose you for who you really are." Linda's smile faltered for just a second, but only for a moment. She quickly regained her composure, but I could see the slight crack in her confidence. She wasn't as untouchable as she wanted me to believe. She knew she was losing control, and that made me feel a surge of power I hadn't felt before. "I'm not scared of your threats," I continued, stepping closer to her. "I've already got the proof I need, and I'm not going to let you destroy my life like you've done to so many others." Linda's eyes narrowed, her expression turning from smug to furious. "You really think you can take me down, don't you?" she spat, her voice venomous. "You think you can expose me and get away with it? You have no idea what you're up against." I stood my ground, my heart pounding, but my resolve stronger than ever. "I've seen what you've done, Linda. I've seen the lives you've ruined, the people you've scammed. You won't get away with it, not this time." For a moment, Linda just stared at me, her eyes cold, calculating. Then, slowly, she reached into her bag and pulled out a small envelope, handing it to me with a cruel smile. "Here's your next step," she said, her voice dripping with malice. "This is your last chance to make a deal." I took the envelope from her hand, my heart pounding in my chest. Inside was a letter, and as I unfolded it, I read the words that made my blood run cold. "If you expose me, I will ruin everything you've worked for. I have connections, powerful ones. I'll destroy your career, your reputation, everything. You have one choice: join me or suffer the consequences." I stared at the letter, the words sinking in like daggers. The power Linda wielded was real. She wasn't bluffing, but it didn't matter. I had come too far to back down now. I looked up from the letter, meeting Linda's gaze. "You don't scare me," I said, my voice stronger than before. "I'm not going to join you. I'm going to take you down." Linda's smile was twisted now, her eyes glinting with rage. You really think you can beat me? You think the law is going to help you? You're just a small fish in a big pond, Megan. But I wasn't listening to her anymore. I was done with her games. I knew what I had to do, and I wasn't about to let Linda ruin my life or anyone else's any longer. I turned on my heel and walked toward the door, my heart racing. You won't get away with this, I called over my shoulder. I'll make sure of it. The next few days were a blur of action and emotions. I wasn't going to sit idly by and wait for Linda to destroy me. I reached out to the authorities, made connections with people who could help expose Linda's web of lies. I had the evidence, bank records, emails, photos, everything I needed to put her away for good. But as I sat in front of my computer, reviewing everything, one thought kept racing through my mind. What if Linda had more power than I thought? What if the people she was connected to weren't just criminals, but dangerous individuals with the resources to make my life a living hell? I shook the thought from my mind. I couldn't afford to be scared now. I had come too far. The day I finally confronted Linda was the day everything changed. I walked into Linda's house once again, my heart steady, but my hands trembling with adrenaline. This time, I wasn't just confronting her, I was finishing what I had started. Linda was sitting at her kitchen table, her usual smug smile plastered on her face. But as soon as she saw the folder in my hands, her face shifted. She knew. Do you think you've won, Megan? Linda said, her voice shaking slightly now. You don't know what you're dealing with. You can't stop this. I didn't respond. Instead, I threw the folder on the table between us, watching as she hesitated before flipping it open. Her eyes scanned the documents quickly, and I saw the color drain from her face as she realized what I had. The proof was irrefutable. I've already sent this to the authorities, Linda, I said, my voice steady and confident. This is over. You can't hide anymore. Her hands trembled as she closed the folder, her eyes wide with panic. You don't know what you've done, she whispered, her voice suddenly small. This isn't just about money anymore. You don't understand the people I'm involved with. But I wasn't listening to her. She had already said enough. Her empire of lies was crumbling right before her eyes, and there was nothing she could do to stop it. The authorities would be here soon. The truth was out, and Linda's time was up. Linda's face crumpled into a mask of defeat as she sat back in her chair, staring at the floor. You won, she muttered, her voice barely audible. I never thought anyone would catch on, but you did. I looked at her, my emotions conflicted. Part of me felt a strange satisfaction. Finally, after all the lies, all the manipulation, the truth was coming to light. But another part of me felt empty. Linda wasn't just a scam artist. She was a person, a broken, damaged person, and in some twisted way, I had become the person to break her. I took a deep breath and walked to the door, turning back one last time before leaving. It's over, Linda, I said softly. You're done. What do you think? Was I right to go this far? Was Linda always destined to be exposed, or was there another way? Let me know what you think in the comments below. And if you want to hear the final chapter in this story, make sure you subscribe. You won't want to miss what happens next.